Hey everyone, I'm Sue from Sue Designs, where I bring you fast, fun, and adorable projects. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make my very easy Gaiter face mask. What's great about this face mask is it has a little nose bridge right here, which makes it great for staying on your face and for wearing glasses. Another great thing is it is totally reversible. So you're gonna get two face masks in one. So without further ado, let's get started. All the tools and materials you will need for this project will be listed in the description below. You will need two 4-way stretch pieces of breathable material, one for the lining and one for the outside. You will also need a nose bridge. Figuring out how wide of material to cut is really easy. Take a tape measure and measure from the base of your neck, under your earlobe, over the top bridge of your nose, and all the way around to the other side. I got 20 inches, and that is the magic number for how wide my fabric will be. Out of each piece of material, cut 20 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Again, you want to make sure it's a 4-way stretch, which means it'll stretch from side to side and top to bottom. If you have a directional print, like this flower, make sure you keep your wits about you and have it facing up. Place your materials right sides together and clip all the way along the top raw edge. Make sure the two raw edges do align as you're clipping them together. Now set your machine up with matching thread and bobbin and a brand new needle. Since we're working with highly stretchy knit materials, we need to choose a small zigzag or a stretch stitch. We also need to adjust the amount of pressure that is on the presser foot. I set mine to 15. And now we're going to test stitch. So take two pieces of scrap and place them right sides together exactly as if you would when you're making your Gaiter face mask. This is always a good idea when working with a different type of material. We want to make sure everything works together. Now you're going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance across that top long raw edge. When you're working with really stretchy materials, it's a good idea to kind of guide the fabric as opposed to stretching it so that it is forced through. When you're finished, cut your threads, and now you've got your nice long seam at the top. Go ahead and press the top of that seam, and you'll notice that I'm not pressing my iron back and forth, whereas I'm more just picking it up and pressing it. Now you're going to open that seam and have the seam allowance facing what would be the outside, where the flowers are. And you're going to press along that top edge. Now you're going to fold your wrong sides together and make sure all the little edges are rolled out and laid nice and flat. Once you get that nice and flat, go ahead and press one more time. It's always a good idea to press your seam flat, open, and then closed. This gives a really nice professional result. Now fold your Gaiter in half widthwise and place a pin at the center. This is going to be the center where your nose bridge will be placed. Place a pin about 1/4 inch to the left of where the nose bridge is and about 1/4 inch to the right. And we're going to be sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance casing. We're going to sew the first left straight edge, sink your needle, rotate the fabric so that it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance from the edge of the fabric, and you're going to sew all the way straight down that casing until you get to the very end. Remove your pins. You never want to sew over straight pins. When you get to the end, we're going to slip our nose bridge inside that casing while the needle is still sunk into the material. Feed it all the way up as far as it'll go, and now rotate your fabric and sew that last short casing edge. Backstitch and cut your threads. Clip any threads that you need to,
And now you've got your 1/2 inch casing and the nose bridge is already inserted inside. Just bend it to make sure everything looks good. And now on to the next step. We're going to take our materials and place them right sides together, aligning what would be the bottom edge of your Gaiter face mask. And just like before, we're going to flatten that long raw edge of the outside and the lining and clip it in place. Once you're finished clipping, sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance just like you did before. Now you're going to turn your Gaiter face mask right side inside the other to align the short side seam. Make sure your outside touches the outside and your lining touches the lining. Also be sure that your seam allowances are pushed in the same direction. We want that seam allowance facing toward what would be the outside, and in my case would be the flowers. See how I have the seam allowance facing toward the flower side. Now clip this in the round, and what that means is all the way around so that you'll actually be able to stick your hand right through all those layers. Just like this. You are going to leave a little bit of an opening. I suggest leaving about 2 inches. Set your machine up so that you can slip that round part right onto the machine's arm. Backstitch at the beginning, and you're going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around that circle. This seam that you're creating is technically what would be the center back of your Gaiter face mask. Make sure that you sew the seam allowances so that they are facing the outside of your Gaiter face mask. And remember, we need to leave a little bit of an opening. I recommend about 2 inches, so backstitch, clip your threads, and now it's time to turn your Gaiter face mask right side out. In that little opening, you're going to pop the entire face mask right out, just like that. And you're going to close that little tiny seam. Now you can just push it together and do a straight stitch, but if you want to make this so that it's truly fully lined and that you can use it reversible, you're going to want to close that opening a little bit nicer. What I recommend is flattening that seam out and using a fusible hem tape. Fit that fusible hem tape inside that seam, give it a good press, remove the paper which will leave the little fusible hem tape inside, and then you're going to close that little seam and give it a good press one more time to secure it. Just follow the manufacturer's suggested press time. If you want, you can hand stitch that little tiny opening closed, but I didn't feel it was really necessary. Now it's time to do a little bit of pressing along the bottom and top edges. Just roll those seams so that they are the same on both sides and nice and flat. And I found that the seam roll was the perfect width to just slip that Gaiter face mask right over, and it kind of just held that mask right in place. It was really nice. Again, just keep rolling and pressing and rolling and pressing. And you're going to want to repeat the same steps along the top seam as needed. And now you're all ready. At the very top, you've got your nose bridge. If you want to turn it right side out, this would be the lining. And so you've got a reversible Gaiter face mask.
Well, I hope you enjoyed making your Gaiter face mask and learned a few new tricks and tips along the way. And if you like this video, do me a favor and give me a thumbs up. And of course, if you have not already, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Come join my weekly newsletter. Of course, follow me on Instagram. And best of all, come join the fun over at my Facebook fan club. And until I see you next time, I hope you have a creative day. Bye-bye.
Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell button so that you get notifications every time a new video is uploaded. And here are a couple of videos you can watch next.